ACQF sont ensemble. C'est justement ce qu'il nous faut.
Sont vraiment liés.
Oui.
On peut parler de la convention sans parler de cadre de qualification. Ça,
oui.
c'est très, très, très important.
Merci de partager ce temps avec nous cette matinée. Merci, professeur.
Merci, madame.
Miriam. How are you doing, Miriam? How is Aqua? Nicholas?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you well. Yes, we can hear you well, Nicholas. How are you doing today?
Eduarda, can you hear me?
Yes, Miriam. Very
great,
well.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm having a bit of a challenge. Let me see if I can get a better connection. If you can hear me, because I can't hear anyone.
Nicholas, we can hear you well.
I'm not able to hear anyone.
Okay. So
Good morning.
good morning. How are you doing?
Fine. And you?
Also fine.
Hi, Eduarda.
Hello. How are you doing? Good morning. Nicholas, Nicholas, can you hear now or not yet? No.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Eduarda, good, all good on your side?
Thank you, Kailash. Very good. And you?
All good.
Mauritius, all fine?
All good, all fine. So I hope we'll see you shortly.
Yes, we will start soon. Another minute or two. Bom dia. Bom dia a todos e todas, os colegas participantes dos diferentes países. Angola já está aqui conosco.
Bom dia, Moçambique já está. Bom dia.
Bom dia, Maria Luísa. Tudo bem? Muito prazer.
Bom dia, PPD e Gats. Tudo bem, tudo bem, tudo bem. Estou em Nampula.
Está em Nampula? Sim.
Estou. Daqui a umas 2 horas tenho meu voo. Mas vou participar até. Mas,
Então, ok, obrigada.
de nada, imagina.
Good morning, IGAD. Good
Good
to
morning,
see you.
Wada. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Dr. Kebede. Always a
Very
pleasure.
glad. Did you make the trip to Addis?
No, it was postponed to next year, so it will be
Okay,
in the
I was
week
wondering
of the
because I was
23rd of
busy and
January.
then I thought I missed you, but it's fine if it is postponed.
Okay. Yes.
Excellent, excellent.
Yes, on the week of the 23rd of January.
January, okay, that's fine. I
Yes.
think it should be okay.
Yes,
Everything
I hope
okay?
to see you then.
Good.
Let us wait for our colleague from the African Union Commission, Mr. Nicolas Oma.
Okay.
He was having some difficulties with the audio. I'm not so sure if he joined already.
No, Eduardo, he hasn't rejoined yet, but I guess he will join soon.
Okay, yes. Okay. So let us continue. But our colleague Chigozie Emmanuel Okonkwo, also from the African Union Commission, he is the main focal expert working with ACQF. He has joined. He is traveling, but he managed to find an appropriate connection. Welcome, Emmanuel. Very good to see you. E caro.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. I just came in. Yeah. Thank you. Glad I could meet up the time.
Yes. Just to say, Emmanuel, so first of all, many thanks for managing this very difficult situation. So arriving in Frankfurt and managing nonetheless to connect to this webinar. I wanted just to inform that our colleague, Mr. Nicolas Oma, is having some difficulties with the audio, but we hope that you will soon join back.
Okay, let me try to reach him.
Okay.
In any case, should we need to start, I would just give his remarks on his behalf and we can get going.
Okay, you decide, let us know.
Okay.
Please, Emmanuel, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Welcome all participants, representatives, delegates, friends of the ACQF to this last webinar in 2022. Thank you so much. Bonjour et soyez tous les bienvenus, tous et toutes les bienvenus à ce webinaire qui sera le dernier du projet de développement de l'ACQF en 2022. Nous sommes ravis de vous voir tous, tant de collègues des pays francophones. Merci beaucoup. Le Maroc, le Cameroun, le Togo, la Tunisie. Merci à tous. And let me say a word of welcome also to our colleagues from different international organizations who are part of the ACQF development process. And here I'd like to mention, of course, the ILO. Christine Hoffman is here with us. We have certainly also UNESCO joining or coming soon. We have, of course, the representatives of the European Union delegation to African Union. The head of cooperation is going to be part of the opening session. We also have from European Training Foundation, one of the partners of the project developing the ACQF. We have the director, Mr. Xavier Mateu, is also going to greet all of you in his opening remarks. And of course, we will always have additional participants joining. In the meantime, we have already 48 participants. We are here with you, with us all, for this final looking back in order to prepare to leap forward. Thank you. many new organizations, many new developments with national qualifications frameworks on the African continent.
Yes, Edward, I think we now have Mr. Nicholas. In order not to lose him, perhaps we can get started and
Yes.
have Mr. Nicholas speak to us.
Okay.
Once again, confirm if you can hear me. I'm having a bit of challenges.
We can hear you well, Mr. Nicholas. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also want to join you and Emmanuel in welcoming all of us to this important engagement. It is truly an honor for us at the African Union Commission to welcome you this morning to this final ACQF webinar under the auspices of the African Continental Qualification Framework Project, which, as we all know, is an initiative of the African Union Commission in partnership with the European Union, GIZ, and the European Training Foundation. After a series of engagements that started with the very, very first meeting in Addis, I think it is good to say that today is just about to say thank you and to appreciate the tremendous efforts by the entire ACQF family for the work and the distance we have come in the past 2.5 years. You will all agree with me that the various webinars, the trainings that we have undertaken have all in a way been beneficial and moved the needle in the qualifications framework in a positive way. In that regard, also from the onset, let me appreciate the distinguished array of trainers that we have had in the various engagements, those who have shared country experiences, and the ACQF team for their commitment to making this activity a reality. Indeed, our commissioner, Professor Mohamed Belfossing, has been among those who have appreciated the fact that we have come this far, and he is indeed proud of the way the ACQF team has engaged and produced the documents we already have, including the experiences that we have shared among countries. And I want to also, in a special
I think we have again a bit of problems with the audio on the side of Mr. Nicholas.
confirm if you can still hear me.
We
Yes,
cannot
we can
hear
hear
you well.
Can somebody confirm if you can still hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
I think I disconnected.
Yes, now it's good, Nicholas, again.
Yes, I was saying we also want to thank you, Eduardo, for the fact that you have assisted us in this. The first 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063 foresees the development of ACQF and that a common education qualification system is put in place by 2023. We are convinced that the development of ACQF is an important milestone in reorienting Africa's education and training systems to meet the human resource needs of Agenda 2063. The process has seen the engagement of different stakeholders and experts, as I've said, which is the backbone of the ACQF. We have the website on and running, which is also furthering our communication. We have the policy document with guideline, and more importantly, we co-created a capacity development program composed of a combination of modalities of learning, peer learning webinars, support to countries and regions, and training programs and conferences. So you will all agree with me that we have come a long way. We are in the right train and in the right direction. And I believe we will get to our destination as per the objectives of the ACQF development. And with that, I want also to finally conclude by sincerely thanking you for joining us this, and also wish those who will be going for their vacations and leave Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you. Back to you, Emmanuel. I don't know if I was heard or I was on and off, but I think I tried.
Yes, we could hear you. Thank you so much, Nicholas. Asante sana.
Karibu.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Emmanuel, we have now still our colleagues from the European Union delegation to African Union and also director of ETF. They have very short opening remarks also.
Thank you, Eduarda. I think we can, of course, invite the EU delegation to the African Union to please make their opening words, give their opening words.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. This is Thomas Hergebert, the head of policy and cooperation at the EU delegation to the African Union. I'm really sorry, I seem to have a problem with the camera, so this is not working, but I hope you hear me well. But yeah, dear colleagues from the African Union Commission, from the ETF, I'm very happy to see big teams around here with a large participation. I think all this is an illustration of the very solid path that we have gone together on the ACQF project. And I think it's also an illustration of good partnership between the African Union Commission, the multiple stakeholders around the African continent, the GIZ, the ETF, and so on. I think, first of all, let me congratulate everyone from the AUC, the GIZ, ETF, and the advisory group on the achievements of this project. I think Nicola has already mentioned some of that. I mean, we have a policy document that has been validated at technical level. And we've made different kinds of innovations. We have technical manuals, research, extensive research has been done. And of course, we have also an innovative website, and capacity development has been taking place. I think bringing together the wide range of experts across the African continent was the most important part. And I think the illustration of having so many around the table today is a very good step also for the next ones. So let me congratulate you again on this success. Now, of course, this is not the end. We have done a big, important initial step, but we have to look at the future. And I think the ACQF policy document provides the solid basis to build upon. And we need to continue on this momentum. What I said, I'm delighted that we are continuing the partnership together on this important topic. And at present, we have started consultations with the AUC and the European Training Foundation on the next phase. And I think I'm happy to say that we have a decision now with a new budget of 5 million euros. And that provides us with the means to work now together with this group on the details of what should be our priorities for the next stage. I'm pleased to see that there will be a strong emphasis on the implementation of activities at national and regional level, because of course the continental level is a very important one, but what we need is the implementation, is the concrete work on the ground where the qualifications come closer together. It should be said that the ACQF is also a cross-continental initiative. The cooperation and partnership between Africa and Europe will benefit much from the implementation of this ACQF in the near future. The European Qualifications Framework and the ACQF will cooperate and contribute to the global transparency of qualifications, which is particularly needed in a digital, and green economies and integrated economies of the 21st century. In the coming months, we look forward to continue working together on sharing best practices, addressing challenges, and working together. As the European Union, I would like to stress also that the ACQF is, of course, not our only project working on education. It is part of a broad portfolio that is focused on education system strengthening across Africa. As you are aware, this includes the harmonization of African higher education quality assurance and accreditation initiative, which we work also closely with the AUC on. Of course, you have Erasmus+, and I mean, I think all the different mobilities that are continue to be increased and enlarged to new areas, and the Inter-Africa Mobility Scheme. It's also EU's contribution to strengthening mobility within the African continent. In addition, in early 2023, we will launch, as some of you have heard, the Regional Teacher Program, which is of course also relevant to the recognition of teachers' qualifications. And I think we need also to build those bridges. So I want to emphasize that between these current and future initiatives, I encourage you all to continue the strong coordination and the good teamwork across these different interventions. The nature of our work means that there are inevitable crossovers, and we should seize opportunities to maximize synergies and avoid overlaps. This will also increase the sustainability of our efforts. And ultimately, we are all on the same team. ACQF will increase mobility of workers, deepen regional integration, and ultimately improve the lives of African citizens by enhancing their access to decent work. Let me conclude. Today's meeting provides another valuable opportunity to discuss the challenges and ideas for the next phase of the implementation of the ACQF, but also to celebrate already the good work that has been done. Your views and opinions and areas are crucial, so please share freely here today. Please be proactive in the discussions today. Be ready to share your experience and to suggest areas for improvement. Sorry, I had another call. I'm confident that this gathering of expertise and the cooperation between you will bring many positive results. Let me conclude my intervention by expressing again my appreciation for your presence here today. Et encore un grand merci à tout le monde, à les amis de la Commission de l'Union africaine, le groupe d'experts et bien sûr l'ETF que je salue à l'occasion. Je vous souhaite tous une très bonne réunion et merci encore. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas. We take note of your very encouraging remarks. We also note that the call for continuous collaboration among stakeholders going forward, and the emphasis you've placed on complementarity of work. We appreciate you, Mr. Thomas. It is now time for us to welcome the director of the European Training Foundation, Mr. Xavier, for his remarks. Over to you, Mr. Xavier.
Thank you very much. Good morning, bonjour, bon dia. Welcome to on behalf of the ETF, to this final stakeholders webinar of the African Continental Qualification Framework Project. I am the director of the European Training Foundation, and I want to join today this webinar to celebrate this first phase of the ACQF project and wish you all the best success for the next phase. The ACQF development process started 3 years ago with the stakeholders workshop at the headquarters of the African Union in Addis. 3 years of intensive work and of adaptation to the changing and challenging context marked by the restrictions of the COVID-19 pandemic. The ACQF project could swiftly shift activities to digital and online modalities. And here is the paradox. This move allowed the project to expand the scope of the work, increasing networking and peer learning, and explore interactions and collaborations with many more countries that originally planned under the pre-COVID scenario. So this is the first lesson of this process, this openness and to adaptation and change to better engage with stakeholders and respond to new demands and opportunities of a world in constant transformation. The qualification frameworks are a global phenomenon. Over 150 countries are developing and implementing NQFs, and in most cases, they are comprehensive and inclusive of all levels of and types of qualifications. But qualifications frameworks only work if they are open to innovation and supported by stakeholders, institutional capacities, relevant instruments, and knowledge and concrete actions. In other words, when they do need a systematic approach to deliver their benefits. National qualification frameworks speak with each other with the help of regional qualification frameworks, which act as catalysts for strengthening NQF in the region, and most importantly, they contribute to transparency and mutual trust between countries. The number of NQFs is increasing on the continent, and so is the relevance and importance of a framework with the scales, the continental scales of the ACQF. So this is the second lesson I find that we can mention today. National, regional, and continental layers of qualifications frameworks shall be interconnected, and the diversity of national systems can be an opportunity when instruments for transparency and comparisons are functional and accessible to all countries and users. People are at the heart of the new experiences, new knowledge and sharing of good practice. The ACQF project implemented in these 3 years from 2020 till now, a program of 20 peer learning webinars in which over 30 national and regional organizations of the African continent shared their experiences in developing NQF, quality assurance, recognition of prior learning, and diplomas, digital registers of qualifications. Experiences from Europe, from Asia, from Middle East were also shared by 15 national and regional organizations. This created a dynamic atmosphere of shared and active learning that has immense potential for mutual help between African countries and regions, and consequently for sustainability. This collective knowledge is available and is open and accessible in the form of large set of learning materials and pedagogical videos on ACQF website. And this is the third lesson we can highlight today. ACQF connects, contributes to mutual trust and creates knowledge based on African experiences. And by contributing to developing national and regional qualification frameworks, ACQF meets the strategic objective of the continental education strategy for Africa. The involvement and contribution of all participants, countries, institutions, social partners, stakeholders, and experts is the backbone of the ACQF process. I want to thank everybody that is today here in this webinar, but also all the people who have been participating in the different webinars. And particularly, I want to help also Erica and Eduarda, who has been inspiring and very efficient in conducting all this process. We wish you all and the continent much success in the next phase, implementing the functions and realizing the benefits of the ACQF for the better skills, mutual trust, fair mobility, lifelong learning, and employability of the African people. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Director Xavier. Thank you for those inspiring remarks. We have now come to the end of the opening session, but by way of appreciation, would like to appreciate the responsible organizations the African Union Commission, represented by Mr. Nicholas, the EU delegation to the African Union, represented by Mr. Thomas, and of course, the director of ETF, for really their commitment to this process. We wouldn't have achieved all that we have achieved so far on the ACQF project without the commitment and the support from these organizations. We also have the GIZ with us here, who I think have been very instrumental in every step that we have taken throughout the actualization of the phase 1 of the ACQF project. Without further ado, I think it is best we move to the next session. Then I would pass the floor to Eduarda to take us through the ACQF, the journey of 3 years of serious learning, co-construction, really out the main milestones and achievements so far. Eduarda, over to you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Thank you very much for the opening remarks to Thomas and Xavier, as well as naturally to Nicholas. And now we start the session, the first session, with a video. Please. Thank you very much for this video that very briefly and just using pictures from activities of the ACQF development process shows in a very rapid manner the milestones and the involvement of many of those who are actually today sitting in this webinar. So thank you very much. We are a little bit running late, so let me immediately share the presentation we have prepared jointly with Emmanuel for this meeting, and we are going to do it in a very rapid, succinct manner. And so the topic is, as of course you know, to give a sum up of the main activities and milestones of the project. Let me also, to start, remind the agenda for today. So after this presentation, we will have the highlights actually of the meeting, which is a panel discussion. And the panel discussion will gather today 5 representatives from countries and from one of the regional economic communities, IGAD. Thank you very much for your participation. So this will be certainly a very interesting moment of our webinar today. Then we dedicate just 15 minutes to each of the last final outputs of the ACQF development project. And your final views and sharing through a poll. So trying to really be very efficient in the process of this webinar today. And then acknowledgements and celebration closure. Yes, we all know that Africa needs skills and qualifications, and this is a call for ACQF. So the African Continental Free Trade Area now with 43 countries that have ratified, the youngest continent, 65% of the population is younger than 25 years. It's 55 countries, therefore a very big diversity, almost 1.5 billion population. So many different calls and drivers for skills and qualifications, and a framework continental that can link and can support all these important integration policies, such as, for example, the AFCFTA. So looking at the total number of countries, this will be the largest regional qualifications framework on the planet with 55 countries. We all know that ACQF is underpinned and is supporting by the AU policies and strategies. And Mr. Nicolas already mentioned this morning, the first 10-year implementation plan supporting Agenda 2063. But let me also remind, of course, CESA 2016-25, so the Continental Education Strategy for Africa. 2 of the strategic objectives of CESA concretely, explicitly mention and call for setting up national qualifications frameworks, regional qualifications frameworks, and also the continental qualifications framework for Africa. So in this process, let us start by thanking, for acknowledging all the countries that have, in a way or the other, contributed, participated in the activities, and they are all listed here. It is 44 countries, and I'd like to read all the names. So Angola, Botswana, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Chad, Côte d'Ivoire, Union of Comoros, République démocratique du Congo, République du Congo, Djibouti, Egypt, Eswatini, Ethiopia, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Kenya, Lesotho, Madagascar, Mali, Malawi, Mauritius, Morocco, Mozambique, Namibia, Nigeria, Rwanda, São Tomé e Príncipe, Senegal, Seychelles, Sierra Leone, Somalia, South Africa, South Sudan, Togo, Tanzania, Tunisia, Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe. And we also have these 4 economic communities, and I should actually have added ECOWAS, naturally. SADC, the East Africa Community, and we did also the Inter-University Council for Higher Education for East Africa, IGAD, and ECOWAS. From African regional thematic organizations, we have AQVN, African Curriculum Association, CAMES, AFCECN, and of course also the Union of the Students' Union, All Africa Students' Union. From other regions and continents, Bahrain, France, Ireland, Portugal, Slovenia, Sweden, they have also contributed to the peer learning webinars, sharing their experiences and knowledge. Other important organizations, relevant organizations participating throughout the process have been, of course, the European Qualifications Framework, as the ASEAN QRF, Qualifications Reference Framework, the Arab Qualifications Framework, Credential Engine from United States. And naturally also important to mention the specialized organizations and networks that have provided contribution and also in different manners, such as CEDEFOP, the ENIC-NARIC network, ESCO of the European Commission, and UNESCO. ILO is also part of this group as one of the members of the advisory group of ACQF. I also need to thank, and I hope I will not cry, all the ACQF experts. And I want to start with Colleen Jafta. She is author of 4 of the training modules and guidelines of the ACQF. And then we have Miriam Chiaba, James Mwewa, Fidelis Chelo, Modest Amalabi. They are from Zambia, from ZACO. This team has also done excellent work on 2 of the training modules and guidelines. Then we have the team of JET Education Services that also has done excellent work, notably in a part of the mapping study and then guidelines and training modules. Let me also list their names: James Kiwi, Eleanor Hazel, Kelly Shiohira, Zahida Valley, and other experts of this team, not mentioned here explicitly. Then we have from Australia, Andrea Bateman. She has also contributed through various important publications. The other team, ACQF team, with which we have been working from end of 2020, is composed of the following experts from different countries. So Deodon Kungufine from Cameroon, Eusebius Juma Mukwana from Kenya, Jeffy Mukora from Mozambique, Kailash Algu from Mauritius, and Jean Adotevi from Togo. Besides, and let me finish the list very quickly by, of course, thanking also the experts working on the ACQF website, Karel Kalitz and Mike Metcalf, and of course, very, very important, our colleagues Erika Davolio and Julia Rulo, who have been very, very efficient and effective, providing high quality support to all the meetings, hybrid and online. I'll be very quick now with the rest of the presentation. So we all know that let's say the success of this process of building the ACQF has been this combination. From one side, the technical analytical work, from the other side, people and networking. And these 2 things have been going together, not separated, but together. So, of course, the AUC support and political leadership, the ACQF advisory group that was created from the very first launch workshop and involved throughout the process. This process of combined technical analytical component with networking with people. The ACQF team with practical NQF expertise, many years of expertise, multilingual, covering all regions. The learning and capacity development, the support to countries and cooperation with regional economic communities, something that came a bit later in the process as countries started to realize that they can benefit from the ACQF process immediately in a manner that we have called quick wins. And of course, also international and EU linkages and networking. So the ACQF achievements, let's say the outputs have already been mentioned, but once again, in a systematic manner. The ACQF policy document, and Emmanuel will tell us later that this document is going to go through a process of validation driven by the AUC, the ACQF level descriptors, the 10 technical and synthesis guidelines, the 10 training modules accompanied by over 50 presentations, technical presentations, all available, accessible online for you to use in your meetings, in your training activities, in your conversations about your own NQF development processes. The ACQF website that we are constantly updating and enriching. The mapping study collection that is always constantly growing, the feasibility study that provides the underpinnings and the analytical framework for the development of the ACQF as a policy instrument. Then also important to mention one example of concrete cooperation with very tangible results with one of the important regional economic communities and regional qualifications framework. It is the review of the SADC qualifications framework report and an updated and complete inventory. We already mentioned, but let me just emphasize that besides the 15 peer learning webinars, and you find all the presentations, all the materials, all the videos, pedagogic videos on the ACQF website, there were also 5 experience sharing webinars at initiative of the African Qualifications Verification Network, AQVN, and jointly organized with ACQF. And this is something that I can also mention here, is this work in cooperation with other organizations that have a joint interface or area of interest with ACQF. For another example is, for example, the study on curriculum, school curriculum, so the school curriculum mapping study, an initiative of the African Curriculum Association under also the umbrella of the CISA curriculum cluster. And this study was carried out jointly with ACQF, jointly conceived and organized. Maybe an important point that I'd like to mention is the, let's say, the richness, the wealth of this ACQF mapping study collection. It's a continuing effort. It did not stop in 2020. No, we continued adding new mapping reports, and currently we have 14 country and 3 regional reports. In the beginning, originally, we had planned 6 country reports, but we reached this number 14. What was also very important is that for the first time through this mapping study, ACQF mapping study, were published analytical reports of NQF developments of 9 countries that had never been included in the global inventory of national qualifications frameworks, regional qualifications frameworks. So this was really an added value. And so these 9 countries now have these reports accessible, and they can and should be updated because things are changing. And the countries I mentioned here are indicated: Angola, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Togo, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique, Nigeria. These are 9 countries, and also a region, EAC, East Africa Community, that had not been so far included in this global inventory of NQFs and RQFs. There is a very concrete, tangible, visible dynamics of NQF development in Africa. And so this is just a summary of how the different stages of NQF and implementation look like currently, as we know today. So taking a total of 44 countries, what we see is that 41% of this total number have NQFs approved and implementation started. And this is really a very changed picture compared with what we could take stock of 3 years ago when we started with the mapping study. So this share of countries with NQFs in development and consultation and NQFs approved and implementation started has really significantly increased. ACQF guidelines and training modules, of course, you have the opportunity to see them all in the ACQF website. We are doing more work now to publish all of them in French and Portuguese. As you know, translations sometimes take a lot of time to proofread and verify. And so, in a nutshell, what we want to say is that these 10 topics of the guidelines and the training modules are those topics that are part of the ACQF model that has been disseminated, that we have been working on with different experts, with the stakeholders, and that is also here represented. So ACQF policy, the NQF policy conceptual technical design must be related, must work together with all the other elements. So the learning outcomes, level descriptors, referencing, validation and recognition of learning, quality assurance, very, very important element, registration and databases of qualifications, another very important element, monitoring and evaluation in the context of NQFs and ACQF, that's the topic 7, guideline 7, communication and outreach, Guideline 9, innovation and technology in the context of qualifications frameworks. And finally, the guideline 10, that is the systemic view, provides then a systemic view of qualifications and qualifications frameworks. So with this set, with this package of topics all articulated and linked together, ACQF project tried to provide to all interested parties, countries, institutions, a very good reference point for their very efforts in developing their national and regional qualifications frameworks. Guinea-Bissau is one of the interesting cases, and we always like to acknowledge and recognize the work done with Guinea-Bissau jointly with the Ministry of Education, with INAFOR, and also with the EU project working on revitalization of the VET system. And so this all started in the context of the ACQF peer learning webinars. This is how they linked countries with the ACQF. And so at this moment where we speak, we have done together with the stakeholders and experts of Guinea-Bissau the mapping study. The NQF working group has been put in place, a workshop in Bissau, 2 days workshop in Bissau. The ACQF training has been provided. The brief handbook on development of professional qualifications, all published on ACQF website. And now also we are also working on the concept paper of the NQF for Guinea-Bissau, jointly with the working group. And a web page is available on ACQF website. And of course, one of the very active participants of ACQF training weeks and peer learning webinars is here showing her digital certificate that she could issue by herself at the end of the hybrid, the second training week. So we have then carried out this year 2 training weeks, one fully online and one hybrid. Besides everything that you can say about the content, about the interactions, the number of countries involved, these were very important learning activities on how to organize such important training events, either fully online or in the hybrid format. So this is just a very brief overview of main, let's say, figures, participants, countries online, and countries that issued certificates. So online and on site. So we had, as you can see, in the first training week, approximately a bit more than 130 participants online. In the second one, 212 online. But we had online and on-site. Then participants on-site were 57 from 28 countries in the second training week, hybrid that took place in Johannesburg, and the total number of countries online, so that accessed that could access the Zoom platform and participate actively are 36 in each of the training weeks. And 52 participants in each of the training weeks have issued their digital certificates, and they can then in the future continue their cooperation, becoming trainers or focal points in their countries with the future ACQF project. So in a nutshell, also the feedback from participants on the first training week. So you can see different questions of evaluation, such as organization of training materials, the trainers. We have then a total out of 4 maximum possible, the scale 3.65, the total evaluation of all participants, a very high score given. In the second training week here, we present only 2 separate questions of evaluation, training materials presentations from one side and relevance and interest of content, and a total of 3.55, also out of 4. This is just to remind, and here I will be really very, very quick in reminding what the ACQF as a policy document is proposed to be. So according to the ACQF policy document that has been validated technically by the ACQF advisory group through the various consultation rounds, and also technically validated at level of the African Union Commissioner for education, science, technology, and innovation. Before now, the process of technical validation, of political and technical validation driven by the AUC with the member states. So the purposes of ACQF, so we have here 4 main purposes: enhancing compatibility, quality, transparency of qualifications of all types and levels, supporting people's lifelong learning outcomes. So this is really an inclusive framework, facilitate validation of learning or recognition of skills, diplomas, so all learning acquired in different modalities, cooperate and work in complementarity with national regional qualifications frameworks, supporting development, consolidation, implementation, and finally promote cooperation referencing between qualifications frameworks, national, regional, in Africa and with worldwide. And 3 most important principles, one of them already mentioned, inclusiveness, the principle of innovation, so future-proof, open to new demands, emerging skills, green, transversal, digital skills, and openness to good practice lessons from worldwide and the globe. Also, in a nutshell, the ACQF is, of course, underpinned by quality assurance, and quality assurance appears in different, let's say, places of the policy documents. It's a meta framework with a comprehensive scope, as said, 10 levels, so covering the whole continuum of education and training. Level descriptors expressed as learning outcomes in 3 domains: knowledge, skills, autonomy, responsibility. So a very strong, let's say, orientation to the learning outcomes that is useful for a number of purposes. Referencing is, of course, a core function of the ACQF as an overarching qualifications framework. And referencing is a process aimed at comparing national qualifications frameworks or systems or regional qualifications frameworks as well to the ACQF, following criteria and procedures. So at national level, referencing contributes also to self-assessment, to improvement, to identify areas for reform and further visibility and strengthening. At a continental level and between countries, so referencing of the ACQF to the ACQF of a significant and increasing number of national qualifications frameworks or systems leads to the creation of a common area of trusted qualifications and enables the transformative potential of the ACQF for the continent. The 7 main areas of activity as indicated in the policy document, and here it's looking at ACQF under the scenario called ACQF creates mutual trust. So these are the 7 main areas: referencing, area number 1, support recognition of prior learning. Number 3, ACQF qualifications platform and a management information system for transparency of information sharing. Qualifications development, so common profiles for priority sectors, for example, for continental integration or for AFCFTA, capacity development through different modalities, networking and cooperation, and also very important analysis, research, monitoring, and evaluation. ACQF has many infographics, has many different publications, easy to read. This is just a sum up of guidelines and training modules. And of course, please use the ACQF website where you can find all this information. Going forward, and in the next period, as already indicated briefly in the opening session, so Emmanuel could tell us more about the validation of the ACQF policy document. It's a process in advanced preparation. You see, is going to contact the member states. This is all a process driven by the AUC. Then building on the outputs and outcomes of the current ACQF project to follow up through a new project supporting implementation or transition to implementation of the ACQF, and always promoting and supporting diverse levels of cooperation, all levels of governance, national, regional, and continental. They all are all connected. In development and preparation on the ACQF, and this is the last slide, the newsletter, a new tool, ACQF inventory, uploading 3 new thematic briefs, ACQF publications in French and Portuguese. And thank you also on behalf of my colleague, Chigoze Emmanuel Okonko, who has been a very important support and driver of this process. Thank you very much. So Emmanuel, we can now move to the next session. We are, of course, a bit late with our schedule. It is the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Eduarda. Thank you for really taking us through the journey so far. You would agree with me that we've really come a long way and we've achieved quite a lot. We've gone beyond what we have set for ourselves. And I think we all deserve a round of applause for ourselves, really. Moving into the next session, which really seeks to engage further the ACQF stakeholders on their views on the processes of the ACQF and their proposed suggestion going forward. But before then, distinguished participants, you will all agree with me that the ecosystem in which the ACQF will be operating in is quite complex and diverse. Unlike other transnational frameworks in the world, the ACQF will interact with 2 different levels of qualifications framework: the national qualifications framework and the regional qualifications frameworks. This is especially because half of the African Union member states do not yet have their national qualifications framework, while others are still more or less reflecting on how to advance such frameworks. The ACQF hopes to interact with a great array of education and training systems with a call to contribute to the wider objectives of African integration in both economy and trade, as well as through employability underpinned by transparent and comparable qualifications across board. The ACQF, you would agree, also will require a synergistic approach with all players in this sector coming together to really chart the way forward. This is to prepare, in essence, the ground for this panel discussion. In that regards, I'm being joined here today by 5 notable institutions, starting with SINAC. We also have Zambia Qualifications Authority. We have IGAD. We also have Cameroon and Cape Verde to share their views on what the suggestions, or to share their suggestions on what they think should be the next, the way forward for the ACQF, and how the ACQF would interact with the national qualifications framework and the regional qualifications framework. To guide this conversation, we have 2 questions. Panelists, the question is, what are, in your view, the main benefits and achievements of the ACQF development project? What are the key lessons for the future? The second question is, what are your main expectations and recommendations for the next phase of the ACQF? And how can you, your organization, contribute to make the ACQF a reality for the continent? To kick off this conversation, permit me to invite Professor Maria Luisa Chicote, the co-chair of the ACQF Advisory Group and the president of SINAC. Professor Maria, you have the floor. You have 6 minutes. Thank you.
Muito bom dia. Em Moçambique, bom dia. São agora 11 horas. O meu nome é Maria Luisa Chicote. Acho que o processo de integração linguística é necessário. Chicote. E eu sou presidente do Conselho Nacional de Avaliação de Qualidade do Ensino Superior em Moçambique, KINAC, e também faço parte do grupo técnico de consulta da SADC. E neste momento acho que estou a terminar a vice-presidência por causa da presidência da SADC. Eu queria gastar 1 minuto da minha intervenção para reconhecer o grande contributo que o projeto ACQF trouxe. E o reconhecer significa trazer à memória todos os participantes, todos os consultores, todos os experts, e esse grupo todo foi, como nós sabemos, foi mobilizado pela ETF e que no dia a dia da gestão nós tivemos a grande animação, eu chamo de animação da Maria Eduarda Castelo. Então, eu queria que cada um, do fundo do seu coração, pudesse expressar aquele que é o nosso agradecimento como Moçambique, como África, como SADC, em relação, peço desculpas, em relação a esta proposta. O que dizer sobre o projeto ACQF? Para mim, pessoalmente, acho que os colegas puderam perceber que eu me integrei no grupo em 2021, perto do mês de abril, e para mim se constituiu a primeira como uma plataforma de aprendizagem. E de outro lado, quando eu fui aprofundando o que significava o projeto ACQF, percebi que era uma das bandeiras da cooperação concreta entre a União Africana e a União Europeia. É uma das bandeiras que busca, digamos assim, na sua essência, comparticipar de uma forma direta no desenvolvimento no desenvolvimento e na implementação, sobretudo, tanto dos objetivos do desenvolvimento sustentável, em particular da estratégia continental para a África, da Convenção de Addis Abeba. Foi dito aqui que a primeira reunião foi em Addis Abeba, e o nosso foco, quando nós falamos dos quadros nacionais de qualificações, a nossa preocupação é essa, em relação àquilo que nós queremos para a África em termos de mobilidade profissional, em termos de mobilidade estudantil, em termos de mobilidade e mais comunicação entre o nosso mercado de trabalho. Em termos de avaliação do projeto ACQF, eu penso que já foi esgotado, mas eu sinto que tenho a obrigação de mais uma vez reiterar aqueles que são os resultados tangíveis do projeto ACQF. Primeiro, é o documento político que todos nós tivemos a possibilidade de participar nesse processo e também, a partir do ponto de vista de intervenção de cada um, de poder ser consultado e contribuir. E subsidiando o documento político do ACQF, também tivemos como resultado tangível as 10 diretrizes que de uma forma muito explícita para nós como Moçambique se constituíram como, digamos assim, uma ferramenta principal concreta para que nós pudéssemos dar seguimento, pudéssemos saber o que nós temos que fazer, o que nos espera, quais são os passos concretos que nós deveríamos seguir em torno daqueles que eram as nossas propostas, os nossos objetivos, no que se refere ao projeto nacional do desenho de qualificações. Em relação e sobre esse aspecto, quando falamos das ferramentas, das informações ricas que estão como recurso na página, no website do projeto ACQF, a minha pergunta seria possível pensarmos na implementação, no desenho dos quadros de qualificações, nas propostas políticas em relação à criação dos quadros nacionais de qualificações, sem, digamos assim, o contributo dessas estratégias a dinâmica dessas estratégias e as ferramentas. E falando das ferramentas aqui também, gostaria de recordar os módulos bem estruturados, sistematizados, que favorecem para quem entra no grupo, para quem se integra no grupo, ele encontra, digamos assim, uma ferramenta muito explícita, muito sistematizada e concreta para poder se integrar no grupo e participar deste processo. E sobre este aspecto eu queria exaltar aqui a abordagem e o processo utilizado no contexto do ACQF. A característica específica que eu encontro é a sistematicidade nos processos de formação, sistematicidade, a retomada que nós fazíamos nesses processos de consulta, de validação, em todos os níveis. Eu penso que essas são grandes aprendizagens que nós precisamos focar nelas, que precisamos potenciar, porque sem uma contínua sistematização e reflexão contínua em relação aos processos que iam acontecendo, não seria muito possível. E sobre este aspecto, penso que seríamos de aproveitar nos próximos passos. No que se refere ao contexto moçambicano, que benefícios, que contributos? Eu entro no grupo do desenho de qualificações de Moçambique, faço parte e sou desafiada a coordenar este processo. Eu não sei o que eu teria feito se eu não estivesse integrada no projeto do ACQF, de onde que eu teria partido? Para dizer que para Moçambique foi um ganho concreto, foi um ganho tangível, tanto que em menos de um ano que nós nos aderimos ou participamos, digamos assim, eu como pessoa, como coordenadora no projeto do ACQF, nós conseguimos ter o nosso quadro nacional aprovado pelo nosso Conselho de Ministros por um decreto, conseguimos ter o grupo que trabalhava de uma forma, digamos assim, por paixão, conseguimos tornar esse grupo oficial, tornar esse grupo, digamos assim, formalizado também no contexto desse decreto, para que realmente ele possa assumir neste processo de desenho e implementação do quadro nacional. Igualmente, o termos participado nesse processo, de um lado, nos instigava a dizer qual será o próximo passo. O que temos que fazer? Que resultado é que nós temos que trazer como contributo de evolução no projeto do ACQF? E isso também nos possibilitou a podermos exercer a influência política dentro do nosso país. Tanto é que há sensivelmente uma semana foi aprovada a revisão da Lei da Educação Profissional. A lei prevê de uma forma legal o contributo do setor privado, o foco nas qualificações. De outro lado, também, nós percebemos e aprendemos que a implementação, o desenho do QNQ, do Quadro Nacional, é um momento de inovação, é um momento de reflexão. E, no contexto do ensino superior, do qual estamos diretamente ligados, foi possível também introduzir essas inovações relacionadas com aquilo que é plasmado no Quadro Nacional de Qualificações, e assim foi também aprovada a revisão da nossa lei do ensino superior, que tem como foco as qualificações do ensino superior, a garantia de qualidade e todos estes elementos importantes. Não sei se ainda estou em tempo, mas eu queria já entrar na segunda questão. Que recomendações para o projeto ACQF? Veja, Emanuela aí está preocupado, já vou para a última questão. É que tenho muito para dizer em relação ao ACQF. Então, que recomendações? Para mim, as capacitações são críticas, tanto no processo do desenho, no processo da implementação, no processo, porque cada fase da implementação ou do desenho tem os seus desafios. E não é possível nós dizermos que, ok, projeto já acabou, e qual é o próximo passo? Não. Os próximos passos, eles sempre devem ser, na minha ótica, decididos por um processo sistemático de capacitação, não é? E o outro aspecto, a necessidade da capacitação, do treinamento, vem também do fato da nossa diversidade em contextos políticos. Todos os stakeholders desses processos são suscetíveis a mudanças contínuas e é preciso uma atualização constante, é preciso uma flexibilização que permita que eles estejam dentro desses processos. Então, para mim, olhando para o futuro, a capacitação é um elemento central e essa capacitação deve se basear nos diferentes intervenientes, nas necessidades específicas, como nós vimos no contexto dos 55 países, dos 41 que já ratificaram. A África é diversa e os sistemas internos são diversos. Para nós, um dos ganhos, neste caso, foi a harmonização do nosso Sistema Nacional de Educação em base às qualificações. O que significa que as necessidades da capacitação também vão diferenciar de país para país. Então, precisamos, como próximos passos também, cada país identificar quais são as suas demandas, quais são os stakeholders que devem envolver nesse processo. A outra questão que é muito central e que eu sou produto dela é a questão da sinergia, tanto interno, regional, quanto a nível do nosso continente. Então, precisamos ainda encontrar, em África se diz, para problemas complexos, nós precisamos construir uma força-tarefa. Então, a questão da implementação dos quadros nacionais, como nós experimentamos, é uma tarefa complexa e ninguém consegue caminhar sozinho, chegar ao resultado se nós não estivermos conectados. E o último aspecto que eu queria salientar aqui, os outros depois poderei, se houver mais espaço, é a questão da comunicação. Nós aprendemos que o envolvimento desde a base, a comunicação, ele cria confiança, desenvolve transparência, não é? Então, este elemento, para mim, é importante também que seja contemplado em termos de ações para os próximos passos e acreditamos que, a partir daquilo que foi o projeto ACQF, não é? Tome outro nome, não tome, nós poderemos ver o que nós podemos fazer a nível dos países e das regiões para continuarmos a termos uma plataforma e continuarmos ainda a disseminarmos. Quanto mais há envolvimento, mais engajamento existe e acontece nesse processo, tanto do desenho quanto da implementação. Eu suponho que os meus minutos já excederam, porque eu tinha marcado aqui para mim, mas penso que já excedi e gostaria de parar por aqui e agradecer esta oportunidade a todos os participantes e aproveito também cumprimentar aos nossos representantes da União Africana, da ETF e da União Europeia. Muito obrigada.
Muito obrigada.
Thank you so much, Professor Maria Luisa. We take note of your very elaborate intervention, very useful intervention. You reiterated one of the main strategic objectives of the ACQF, which is really to serve as an enabler for other national qualifications framework to spring up. We are glad that at least this first phase served that purpose in the case of Mozambique. You also spoke to the capacity development element of the ACQF and the need to continue the good work that work package did throughout this process. We saw member states engaging through that platform. We saw RECs engaging through that platform, sharing experience and best practices. You also spoke to the need for a synergistic approach. This cannot be overemphasized. Thank you so much, Professor Maria. We'll move now to Professor Miriam Chiaba, the CEO of Zambia Qualification Authority. The questions are the same, Professor. What are, in your views, the main benefits and achievement of the ACQF development project? What are the key lessons for the Zambia Qualification Authority? What are your main expectations going forward? What are your recommendations for the next phase? Over to you, Professor Chiaba.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Thank you, everyone, and for this opportunity to just air and share our views on the ACQF project. Special recognition to Eduarda, the team that's been working on this project, and all of us for making it a success, because we would not be sitting here today looking at the outcome of the ACQF project. For Zambia, we had two roles. Firstly, as a beneficiary of the project, but also we participated as presenters to the webinars, as experts, also developing 2 of the 10 guidelines. And through the process, I think a lot was learned, but I want to start by highlighting the achievement of getting the results that we currently have amidst COVID. No sooner than the project was launched, COVID hit. And so the plans initially would have been face-to-face and so on. Achievement of that, initially, I know that for the task team, it was a tall order to ensure that we get the mapping study done and all that amidst COVID, which really affected all of our countries. But I think the greatest is that today we're sitting and saying we have 10 guidelines. We went through the training sessions, and we have tools that we're able to use. So for us, that is an achievement for the continent to get to where we are. And we see that the guidelines that were developed, that have been developed by the different experts, the training modules, these are important resources. That's a great benefit that we see for all of us on the continent, being users of the ACQF documents. This is there's a pot of resource. When you look at the ACQF website, for countries that we see that countries that didn't have NQFs, they have a reference tool where they can go to and see the best practices in the different areas for continental for qualifications framework development. So this is a very good tool, and it looks at the different aspects that the different regions face. It brought together stakeholders and input and experiences from different countries. So you see that even for us at Zambia, for instance, in certain areas like our credit accumulation and transfer system, we have been able to learn quite a lot to shape and reshape our CAT systems. So we see that the process that we went through, the outcomes, really the outputs of this project have been very, very useful to running the authorities. What it has brought together is also a community of experts. We see that the training sessions that we had, the initial one and the second one, the last one that we had in South Africa, brought together the community, and we were able to share different experiences, and we saw that countries that did not have NQFs get lessons to have these in place. We are seeing countries like Mauritius now looking conclusively at their CAT system to just enhance it and so on. We see, I think, the work that's happening in Cape Verde and so on. So we're seeing that a lot of us have actually benefited from this process, and we have learned to work together. But importantly, wearing my other hat, I'm the former chairperson of the Africa Qualification Verification Network. We've seen that we've brought together a team of verification experts that are now sharing information much more regularly because of the support that the AQVN got from the ACQF project in holding webinars together, bringing together different practitioners, and amidst COVID, being able to assist each other in sorting out issues of recognition of qualifications in as far as verification of qualifications. So this has been a clear process, very transparent. Everyone was engaged. And if you were not engaged, it's because you didn't want. So we were all given the opportunity to participate, but we took advantage of that. In terms of expectations, going forward, the expectation is that this shouldn't just end with the documents being on the ACQF website. We need to see implementation. We need to have a clear implementation plan. And the start point is we need to have the validation of the ACQF outputs. We need to have that validation and the adoption of that by the political leaders, so that in the different countries, all the signatories of this will be able to now implement as technocrats who've done our work. So we need now to get to the next stage and ensure that the implementation is based on a validated requires resources. So the resources that we've been getting, the support from GIZ, support from the AU, all that is required going forward, because otherwise we will end up with all this work that we've done and we're not going to the next step. But realizing the importance of the ACQF, we do need to have those resources committed as soon as possible, so that then we get to phase 2 and we see implementation happening, so that then we can run with the implementation. On the raw specific now for the qualifications authority like ZAQA for us is not to wait until that validation happens. The guidelines that have been given, the training modules that are there are very self-explanatory, very easy to adapt and run with. They give best practice in our area of expertise. So it's for us to pick the ones that fit in our countries, so that then we can start implementing. From a country perspective, there are good practices that are there that are recommended. And we will do well to just strengthen our NQFs for us who have NQFs that are running. The modules on learning outcomes, the modules on validations, all the modules that have been done are very, very important, even currently, even before that adoption is done. And the same for us should then be replicated at a regional qualifications level. We're looking for us at SADC, looking at ECOWAS. There is a lot in there that can be adopted, and we do not have to wait until validation at the continental level for us to work with that, because these generally, we are the practitioners and we've said yes. So for Zambia, also going forward, is to ensure that we advocate for this, the validation of the guidelines and the policy documents and all that comes with it. So we advocate with the political leaders, because the political leaders are the ones that eventually will say, yes, let's proceed. So it's to have an advocacy, a good advocacy strategy, to have a good communication strategy in ensuring that our countries are on board, ensuring that they know what the ACQF is all about and the benefit that arise from the ACQF, and beyond that, ensuring that we maintain the stakeholder collaboration that we have attained through this interaction. I know that now I can pick up, my email and write to Cameroon, and I will be able to be assisted. So to maintain and to go forward without looking back, and to also just encourage each other where we see that we need another country's support in the development of the NQF. We should be available to do that. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I want to also take this opportunity to just wish everyone a festive season, and wish the ACQF all the best as we look at the next steps, which I hope will be very soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Chiaba, for that very powerful intervention. You've encouraged us to harness the low-hanging fruits within this process, to leverage on the connections that we've built throughout this process. You've also tasked us as as the political lead for this project, that is the AUC, to ensure expedited validation process by the AU member states with a clear implementation plan going forward. Thank you so much, Professor Chiamba, for that. Now let's move to the Rex. Let's hear from IGAD, Dr. Kebede. IGAD is also developing a regional qualifications framework. I'm aware they've gone through some sort of a validation exercise to that effect. Dr. Kebede, what are, in your views, the main benefits and achievements of the ACQF development process? What are the key lessons for the future? The second question is, again, what are your main expectations for the next phase of the ACQF? How can IGAD contribute to the ACQF and make it a reality for our continent? Over to you, Dr. Kebede.
Thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Eduarda. Thank you, colleagues, for all the interventions this morning, and also for the opportunity to invite IGAD to reflect its perspectives and views on both what we gained from the SQF process and also on what we expect in the coming years. My name is Kebede Kasa. I'm the Senior Coordinator for IGAD Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation, ESDI. And we have been working on a similar project at regional level. We represent 8 countries, actively 7. I don't want to mention them in the Eastern and Horn of Africa region. We serve about 300 million people, and largely we have a population on the move and affected by quite a range of challenges like conflict, displacement, climate change, and migration. So we are contextualizing the qualification framework on this. And as I say, we are one of the pillars of the African Union. The regional economic communities are supposed to be the pillars. We are implementing a number of the interventions and also the initiatives of the African Union, including Agenda 2063, CISA, and STISA, as well as the teacher training and also the TVET programs. The qualification framework is very important to us. In fact, I can say that we started quite early in 2017 with the adoption of the Djibouti Declaration on Education for Refugees, Returnees, and Host Communities. And then we actually got the approval by the ministers on the process of developing the IGAD Regional Qualifications Framework in 2018 during the second conference of IGAD ministers in charge of education. And then we had been working on the development of the Regional Qualification Framework in partnership with UNESCO, GIDED, and also the African Union itself, the Commission. So we are at a very advanced stage. We have almost done the national surveys on which countries have and which countries are working on, and then how we support the member states in developing the national qualification framework, as we are also working on the regional qualification framework. For your information, the regional qualification framework is at its advanced stage. We had the draft framework, which was validated in a workshop in Entebbe in October 2022. We were supposed to have a ministerial conference for the validation of the regional qualification framework this month, but unfortunately, we were requested to delay it for next year, early next year. And we are expecting that this could take place in the first quarter of the new year. Having said that, I think what we gain from the ACQF are quite a number. I'll just start by outlining some, like like building the collaborative process. I think the collaboration is very important. We are collaborating with you as the AU. Fortunately, I am the member of the board of the qualification framework development. Though my participation was slightly limited due to a number of factors, including COVID, but most of the work being virtual, I had the opportunity to engage with you, with Eduarda, and also the other part. So this partnership building is very important. We build consensus on the need for the qualifications framework at the continental level, and that has also accentuated, if not started, the regional qualifications process. We have also benefited from the expertise. I think now the chief consultant developing the IGAD qualification framework is part of the continental qualifications framework. We have gained immense lessons from the leadership and also expertise of Eduarda. I would like to recognize her immense contributions, and we wish to continue benefiting from her expertise. And then I think the platforms that the Continental Qualification Framework has created has also contributed a lot. And then I think we have set through that a common agenda, and very important. And it is a participatory and quite engaging continental versus regional and national process. And then the lessons learned from this process are one, leadership matters. I think the leadership of the AU, the leadership of the experts that are in the EUTF, and then the leadership at regional level are very important, and they are paying. And then I think the other lessons is that partnership building is very important, and in fact it works very well. Partnership with the different actors, state and non-state actors, partnership with international, continental, regional players, and then partnership with donors and also development partners that are very important. And then I think another important lesson I would like to outline is that national ownership of the project, even if it doesn't exist at most of the country level, the countries own the national level initiative, and now they are working with IGAD as well as AU to develop their national qualification frameworks. The national qualification frameworks will be the building blocks for the regional as well as the continental qualification frameworks, and that's where we are busy working with our member states. And then listening to each other is also a very important lesson that we acquired over the last 3 years. We heard a lot from the presentations. We heard a lot from the perspectives. We heard a lot from our partners, and this has contributed a lot for the development of regional national qualifications framework. What are our expectations? I think they are articulated again and again by the previous speakers, including the distinguished experts that have taken the floor for the opening statements, and also the distinguished panelists that spoke before me, the colleague from Mozambique and also the one from Zambia. Especially the Zambian experience is very important. We have learned a lot in the in the AU-led training program in South Africa, and as you may have seen, the IGAD region was very heavily represented by all the member states in South Africa, and at the same time also other experts were very curiously and attentively participating in the training as they are desirous of developing and building their own national qualification frameworks based on the expertise and the experience of the continental level. So altogether, we had facilitated the participation of 25 plus experts, and then I and my colleague, Sagal, who is in charge of the qualification framework at the IGAD level, had taken part in the South African training program. So we listen to that, we appreciate that, and then we take that seriously, and then bring it back to our constituencies and also our regional level interventions. So that is really very important. So I think we need to maintain this momentum. We need to keep the leadership of the AU and IGAD in terms of facilitating the development of regional and national qualification frameworks. We need to work very closely with each other, especially we want the AU to work very closely with REX. They are very vital for the domestication of the continental qualification framework, but also for its implementation. And then we need to engage on a broad basis the member states at all levels of our work and seek high-level collaboration with other partners, including the European Union, the government of Germany through GIZ, and then many other on bilateral and multilateral basis. That is very essential for financing, supporting, encouraging the development of both regional and national qualifications frameworks. At the regional level, we really want to thank the AU. We thank the ECW, which actually came in with the support to the development of the qualification framework. We appreciate the work being done by GIZ, and then we also express our gratitude to the support of the European Union, the continued support of the European Union. At the AU level, through the process, we have really built friendship with Eduarda, Emmanuel, Nicolas, who have been at the driving seat, but at the whole, the AU Commission was very, very helpful in working with us. So I think we want to continue with that. We want to build on what we have already started. And then in the years to come, I think especially in the next year, we should be together to enhance the advocacy, the partnership building, and the final validation of the continental qualification framework at the ministerial level, and then also domesticating it at regional level as well as at member states level. Our role as a regional economic community is very immense in terms of bridging the gap between the AU and the member states, and also identifying the felt needs at various levels, and also especially for the qualification framework and the recognition of prior learning, especially in the context of the highly affected displacement communities. And these are very critical. I think I will ask for the continued collaboration between us to IGAD and the AU, and then we encourage Eduarda to work with us. We thank you very much for all those immense contributions to the continent, which are very vital. Thank you very much, and I stop here. If you have questions, I will be available to respond. Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Eduarda. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kebede. Thank you so very much for those valuable contributions, stating the need to maintain the momentum and build on this good work that has started. Let's now move to Professor Rodolphine Wamba from Cameroon, the Deputy Director, University Accreditation, Ministry of Higher Education. Professor Rodolphine, are you with us? Great.
Merci de me passer la parole. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais profiter de l'occasion pour dire une fois de plus bonjour à tous les participants, en particulier à notre chère Eduarda, qui a toujours été au four au moulin. C'est d'ailleurs l'une des chevilles ouvrières, et c'est d'ailleurs grâce à son acharnement au travail que nous avons pu nous retrouver aujourd'hui. Donc, j'aimerais une fois de plus, au nom du Cameroun, remercier l'Union africaine, l'Union européenne et tous les autres partenaires dans ce programme ACQF. Comme vous l'avez dit si bien, effectivement, notre belle aventure a commencé au soir pas au soir, a commencé en septembre à Addis Abeba. Au cours de cette rencontre, le Cameroun a été honoré de pouvoir siéger au sein du groupe consultatif à travers ma modeste personne et nous avons cheminé pendant 3 années. J'avoue que l'aventure était belle, très fructueuse d'ailleurs, parce que lorsqu'on lance un regard rétrospectif, nous nous rendons compte que tous les documents, tout le travail qui a été abattu, en commençant par le document de politique de l'ACQF, à travers ses 10 lignes directrices et ses 10 modules de formation. Nous avons également participé, le Cameroun a eu l'honneur de participer à l'étude cartographique de l'ACQF. Je crois qu'à l'occasion, nous avons eu aussi le privilège de recevoir Edouarda au Cameroun, malgré la pandémie Covid qui était déjà, c'était pas encore très accentuée, mais Edouarda a eu le courage de braver la pandémie, surtout que c'était encore à ses débuts, nous ne savions pas très bien à quoi cela rimait. Merci une fois de plus pour ce courage. Et nous ne pouvons pas oublier l'ensemble des programmes de renforcement de capacités. Nous avons eu au total 20 webinaires et il s'agissait en réalité de l'apprentissage par les pairs. Et je peux vous avouer que le Cameroun a été vraiment l'un des grands bénéficiaires de toutes ces années de travail, puisque en septembre dernier, nous avons procédé à la validation technique du draft 0 de notre cadre national de certification et de qualification. Et vous vous en doutez, c'est grâce à cette documentation, c'est grâce à la démarche qui avait été proposée, c'est grâce à tout ce travail que nous avons capitalisé. C'est grâce à tout ce travail que nous avons capitalisé étudiement qui nous a permis justement à la date d'aujourd'hui de procéder à la validation technique de notre cadre, du projet du draft 0. Et évidemment, le travail continue, puisqu'il faudra bien que ce draft 0 soit porté justement à l'attention de nos autorités nationales et que le travail d'alimentation et d'alimentation continue. C'est d'ailleurs à ce niveau que nous sommes en train de procéder au recrutement d'un expert qui va pouvoir accompagner l'équipe Cameroun dans cette mise en œuvre du cadre national de certification. Et là aussi, vraiment, nous avons beaucoup appris, surtout que nous avons eu la chance au Cameroun d'avoir des sectoriels qui se sont mis ensemble. Nous avons le ministère de l'Emploi et de la Formation professionnelle, nous avons entre autres le ministère des Enseignements secondaires et je profite de l'occasion pour exprimer une fois de plus aussi la gratitude du Cameroun d'avoir un expert camerounais parmi les membres, parmi l'équipe d'experts de l'ACQF. Nous avons un compatriote qui est expert, Diodone. Donc, c'est une fois de plus l'occasion pour nous d'exprimer notre gratitude par rapport à cela. Donc, le travail avance. Il avance très bien au Cameroun. Tout ce que nous allons souhaiter, c'est effectivement de continuer de bénéficier de l'accompagnement de l'ACQF et qu'au niveau continental, puisque l'ACQF fait partie, est une institution de l'Union africaine, il serait aussi bon que pendant que nous avancions dans la mise en œuvre de notre cadre national de certification, que nous pensions aussi à un regroupement sous-régional, notamment au niveau de l'Afrique centrale. Si les pays de l'Afrique centrale, s'ils sont au même niveau que nous, moins avancés, plus avancés, mais nous avons déjà à l'esprit de pouvoir penser à un regroupement sous-régional, à l'instar de ce que nous voyons en Afrique de l'Est, en Afrique du Sud et autres. Donc, ce serait une très bonne chose. Et je voudrais profiter aussi de l'occasion pour plaider pour justement cette communication qui doit être maintenue au-delà de tout. Parce que nous avons un fabuleux site ACQF qui est très alimenté et j'avoue que ce serait vraiment un site de référence. Parce qu'à chaque fois que nous en avons besoin, nous y allons. Pas plus tard que ce matin encore, je faisais la remarque à Edouard que je n'ai pas vu les modules de formation, le module 3, 7 et 8. Et effectivement, c'est elle qui m'a rassurée en disant que ces modules-là étaient encore en cours de traduction parce qu'elle n'était pas encore très sûre de la version finale de la traduction en français. C'est pour vous montrer tout l'intérêt que nous portons à ce site qui devient une référence pour nous. Et je voudrais profiter de l'occasion aussi pour demander, bon, ce n'est pas directement lié à l'ACQF, mais à l'Union africaine, d'essayer de voir dans quelle mesure inciter tous les pays qui ont été signataires du texte d'Addis pour que nous essayions, hein, pour ceux qui n'ont pas encore, pour qu'ils essayent de mettre en place une agence nationale d'assurance qualité. Parce que cette institution nous manque énormément au Cameroun. Lorsque cette agence nationale d'assurance qualité sera mise sur pied, naturellement, ce sera beaucoup plus facile de pouvoir se mouvoir à l'intérieur afin de questionner plusieurs autres pans, notamment la validation des acquis de l'expérience. C'est vrai, au niveau du MINEFOP, ministère de l'emploi et de la formation professionnelle, ils sont déjà bien avancés. Mais nous autres, à l'enseignement supérieur, nous traînons encore quelque peu le pas. Mais je pense que si une agence avait existé, ça aurait été l'occasion de booster aussi la mise en place de cet instrument. Donc, là aussi, c'est vraiment un plaidoyer. Et pour finir, je voudrais, comme les autres, étant donné que le travail technique a très bien avancé, il faut bel et bien, évidemment, que nos pays puissent ratifier, puissent adopter cette plateforme ACQF qui est en train d'être mise en place. Les techniciens ayant fini, il faut bien que le politique nous dise que, OK, et puisque nous sommes tous conscients de l'intérêt à pouvoir se mouvoir en Afrique centrale et faciliter justement la mobilité et de nos jeunes étudiants et de nos jeunes travailleurs afin que les certificats qui sont produits ici puissent être reconnus là-bas sans grosse difficulté. Donc, vivement que le travail au niveau politique puisse être également finalisé. Donc, je ne vais pas être longue, je voudrais tout simplement une fois de plus remercier toutes les parties prenantes et nous remercier nous-mêmes parce que nous avons œuvré aussi. Hein?
Oui.
Edouarda, merci beaucoup une fois de plus.
Merci, merci. Merci beaucoup au Cameroun.
Merci.
Un grand plaisir.
Thank you so much, Professor Rodolphine. We'll now move to the last but not the least panelist, Mr. Amicao Mendes, the coordinator UC SNQ Cape Verde, to share your thoughts and provide recommendations for the next phase of the ACQF. How can your organization contribute to the ACQF and make it a reality for the continent? Over to you.
Bom dia a todos, de Cabo Verde. Sou Amilcar Mendes, coordenador da Unidade de Coordenação do Sistema Nacional de Qualificações. Em nome de Cabo Verde também agradecemos a oportunidade de estar presente nesse encontro aqui de extrema importância na construção desse importante instrumento político, não é, para a África. Eu gostaria de começar a minha intervenção falando um bocadinho sobre o desenvolvimento sustentável em África. Não é? A meu ver, temos 3 pressupostos muito importantes para que possamos ter uma África desenvolvida e sustentável. A primeira é a questão da estabilidade política, econômica e social, que é muito importante. A segunda, a escolha de aceleradores para o desenvolvimento, ou seja, a escolha de mecanismos que nos impulsionam a mudança e que levam ao desenvolvimento da África. E um terceiro pressuposto muito importante, a questão da prosperidade compartilhada, ou seja, a prosperidade de toda a população africana, independentemente das classes sociais, o que vai fazer com que haja redução das assimetrias e desigualdades a nível econômico e social. E um dos maiores, ou se não o maior acelerador econômico e social de um país é o seu desenvolvimento do seu capital humano, não é? Então, isso é uma questão indiscutível que vai impactar a nível da empregabilidade, a nível da produtividade, a nível da inovação, o que vai aumentar a competitividade e a mobilidade social ascendente da nossa população. E o quadro continental africano de qualificações é uma política vital da União Africana para o desenvolvimento das competências e das qualificações que nos permite atingir esse desiderato, não é? Que é o desenvolvimento do capital humano que nós queremos. Perspectivar uma África integrada, com livre circulação de pessoas, com livre comércio e principalmente com um espaço de educação comum para todos os estudantes africanos. E o quadro continental africano de qualificações vai ter um papel muito importante nesse processo. Em relação às questões que foram levantadas aqui, em relação às principais contribuições, benefícios que esse projeto trouxe, não só para Cabo Verde, mas eu acho que para todos os países que estiveram envolvidos nesse importante projeto, eu destaco aqui o suporte e o envolvimento de todos os países nesse processo a nível político e institucional, demonstrando o compromisso dos Estados-membros para a criação do espaço africano de aprendizagem ao longo da vida, que vai facilitar a mobilidade transnacional de trabalhadores e também dos aprendentes. Destaco ainda um outro aspecto muito importante que para mim foi teve um benefício grande para todos os países, a questão da partilha de experiência, a questão da participação ativa de todos os países na construção desse instrumento, o comprometimento, a articulação, o network que houve na construção e a viabilização desse projeto que até então nós estamos a trabalhar. Destaco também um outro aspecto muito importante, que é a questão da harmonização, a riqueza de informação e a inovação, e também a sistematização das informações que houve durante todo esse processo, não é? Através de plataformas que foram criadas, não é? Fazendo com que haja maior acesso de todos às informações sobre esse importante instrumento. A única coisa que eu gostaria de pedir é que essas informações também fossem disponibilizadas um bocadinho mais na língua portuguesa. Sim, sim. Estão a ouvir, não?
Sim, muito bem. Estamos a ouvir, sim.
Ok. Em relação aspectos importantes para o sucesso desse projeto, destaco aqui 4 aspectos muito importantes, que eu acho que o primeiro é o compromisso político a nível dos Estados-membros para a institucionalização do ACQF, eu acho que é muito importante, enquanto instrumentos de referência para comparar os níveis de qualificações dos diferentes sistemas de qualificações, e também que vai permitir e promover a aprendizagem ao longo da vida e a igualdade de oportunidade em África. Isso é muito importante. Um segundo destaque que eu trago aqui é a adoção de medidas para incentivar a estruturação dos quadros nacionais ou sistemas nacionais de qualificações nos países que ainda não dispõem de quadros. Isso eu acho que é muito importante, claro, respeitando a rica diversidade dos sistemas nacionais que existem em África, que existe a nível da educação e formação em África. Isso é muito importante. A adoção também de medidas para que os certificados e diplomas emitidos pelas autoridades competentes nos diferentes países tenham uma referência clara aos quadros nacionais de qualificações. Esse é um trabalho também que, depois da institucionalização do ACQF, nós teremos que fazer para que possamos ter essa referenciação clara dos diplomas e dos certificados que os países fazem aos quadros nacionais. Por fim, um outro aspecto também é a questão da adoção de medidas para a referenciação dos quadros nacionais e regionais ao ACQF. Eu acho também importante, é um dos aspectos também, é um caminho que nós devemos seguir e fazer com que realmente todos os países tenham esse comprometimento, primeiro na referência, na adequação dos seus certificados e diplomas aos quadros nacionais e depois na referenciação dos seus quadros a quadros tanto nacionais como regionais ao quadro continental africano de qualificações. Também um aspecto muito importante que eu acho que devemos aqui destacar é a estruturação do sistema africano de acumulação e transferência de créditos, porque só vamos poder realmente fazer funcionar todo esse processo se realmente possamos melhorar o reconhecimento, a acumulação e a transferência de resultados de aprendizagem que vai apoiando a mobilidade e a aprendizagem ao longo da vida. Porque não é só ter o quadro nacional de qualificações, mas também, conjuntamente, devemos criar um conjunto de instrumentos que vai apoiar a operacionalização do quadro continental africano de qualificações, que são aspectos muito importantes. Em termos de contributos que o projeto trouxe para Cabo Verde, temos vários contributos. Primeiro, destaco a questão do desenvolvimento de competências, não é? Permitiu-nos desenvolver melhor as nossas competências em relação a todo o sistema de qualificação e também dos quadros nacionais, o quadro nacional, e conhecer também a diversidade que existe a nível africano em termos dos quadros e não só, entre outros aspectos. O apoio também que nos permitiu na sistematização das nossas informações a respeito do nosso quadro nacional de qualificações, que já tem 10 anos de experiência, mas esse trabalho nos permitiu fazer uma melhor sistematização das nossas informações em relação ao nosso quadro nacional de qualificações. Acima de tudo, queria destacar aqui um papel muito importante que esse projeto teve para que hoje pudéssemos estar nesse processo de comparação do nosso quadro nacional de qualificações ao quadro europeu de qualificações. Destacando aqui que, a partir desse projeto, com vários contactos que nós tivemos, eu destaco aqui a Eduarda, que teve um papel muito importante nesse projeto, nós conseguimos, através de um projeto piloto, estamos já nesse processo de comparação do nosso quadro nacional de qualificações ao quadro europeu de qualificações. Isso que vai permitir haver maior transparência, uma maior comparabilidade e uma maior confiança, não é? Confiança em termos das qualificações que se produzem aqui em Cabo Verde. O que irá facilitar a questão da mobilidade dos trabalhadores e também na questão da aprendizagem ao longo da vida. Por isso, para nós, esse projeto teve uma grande importância e queríamos parabenizar a União Africana e a União Africana, a União Europeia e a todos os parceiros que estiveram envolvidos nesse projeto de extrema importância para a África. E, por último, devemos fazer com que haja uma promoção da cultura de reconhecimento, que acolhe a diversidade dos sistemas de ensino e formação profissional existente em África. Devemos começar a trabalhar no reconhecimento das qualificações que se fazem em África, permitindo com que realmente haja esse desenvolvimento do capital humano que vai permitir o desenvolvimento da África que nós estamos almejamos. Era mais ou menos isso o nosso contributo. Muito obrigado e bem-aja ao quadro continental africano de qualificações. Muito obrigado.
Muito obrigada, Cabo Verde. Muito obrigada.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Michael, for that wonderful insights, wonderful presentation on the benefits of the ACQF to Cape Verde and how Cape Verde can in turn contribute to the ACQF. In the interest of time, permit me to now pass the floor to Eduarda to perhaps, before moving to the next session, give a very brief summary of this panel discussion and take us to the next session. Over to you, Eduarda.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Indeed, let us be very, very quick and synthetic in this very quick summary. So, dear panelists from the different countries, we had today 5 panelists, and your insights about how you lived all this process, this road, have been extremely helpful, and of course, also emotional to all of us. We have all been involved, and some of you have participated very actively, contributed very actively to the process. If I can just mention Cape Verde, for example, Cabo Verde has contributed with maybe 5 presentations in peer learning webinars, in the training, in the training programs, and this was so incredibly helpful for this entire process of peer learning, knowledge sharing, and knowledge creation based on African experiences. This is just an example, but Zambia is also another example, also with a number of presentations on credit system, on the NQF, the leadership also with the AQVN, and Cameroon as well. Cameroon presented on the NQF, on recognition of prior learning, validation des acquis de l'expérience. So all your contributions have been really fundamental. Without your contributions, the process would have not happened. Simply, we would not have reached the wealth of outputs that that the project has managed to reach. So, if I would just say a few words out of your insights about the past, let's say the road we walked together, and the future. The words are learning together, learning with each other, then networking. Another one is visibility for your national qualifications framework. So visibility that in many cases was not there, and that this process has helped very much. Shared prosperity. So that's a very interesting idea just mentioned by Amilcar, shared prosperity and the equality of opportunities. And some other participants in the past mentioned NQFs in Africa are instruments also for peace between countries, because they support fair mobility. Systematization, systematic approach, these platforms, open platforms for mutual learning, and then, of course, this very strong call for the political validation that is now, let's say, the important topic ahead, the important objective ahead, and the African Union is, of course, driving this process. Thank you very much. Emmanuel, we cannot hear you in case.
Thank you so much, Eduarda, for that wonderful summary, putting everything together and giving us a direction for our next course of action. Without further ado, I think it's best we then move to session 3. I think you would lead this session, Eduarda.
Okay, thank you very much. So I just wanted to mention first that we will still have 5 minutes for participants who would like still to raise their hand and say something in very brief, let's say, synthetic terms about how you lived the process and your recommendations for the future. But now let us move then to this substantive session 3, in which we have the 2 last outputs, final outputs that have been just finalized of the ACQF project. So first of all, let us pass the floor to William Odiambo. He's going to share with us very brief, please, if possible, William, just 10 minutes, your very brief presentation on the main findings of the study on the complementarities between ACQF and the African Continental Free Trade Area. William, karibu, asante sana. I know that you are going to do this in a very synthetic and clear manner. Thank you. The floor is yours. Then, after William, we pass the floor to the team from CINOP. This team is going to present then very briefly, also 10 minutes, the handbook on competence-based training in TVET, a renewed view. So we have now a substantive session, content-rich. William, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Eduarda. And thank you everyone for being here. for the opportunity. Sorry, I kind of celebrated the World Cup a little too loudly yesterday, so I may have lost my voice. Forgive me if I sound funny. But I don't know if I'm able to show my screen. Let me also recognize my colleague Walter, who is also in the Walter Dondi, who is also here. We did the study with him, and several of you were respondents in the study. Now, we'll just do 4 items listed here. Talk about the objectives and methodology, the internal mechanisms and linkages, ACQF as an enabler of trade, and recommendations. The study was an exploratory study to identify and propose a range of policies and mechanisms enabling synergy and mutually reinforcing interplay and cooperation between ACQF and AFTA. We adopted a qualitative analytical method with narrative approaches that, with a primary data collection tool being secondary data collection, desktop review, analytical approaches, combined with primary data collection done through key informant interviews. And several of you were actually our respondents, and we are very grateful for that. I'm trying to, okay, it has refused. So we've come up with several layers of linkages and mechanisms between ACQF and AFTA. And these are strategic linkages. We recognize that there is a lot of congruence in terms of policy, vision, and just an understanding of where the two instruments are heading towards. And so that presents an opportunity for linkages at that level. There are proposals on structural and governance linkages. We are proposing cross-participation, whether at the structure or governance of ACQF and AFTA, and at the grassroots levels within the countries, the NQFs and the AFTA coordinating teams within the countries. There are technical linkages in terms of support from ACQF to AFTA and the other way around. Service delivery linkages, including capacity building and awareness. You realize that AFTA enjoys a lot of awareness continentally. ACQF is yet to get there, and so it can actually leverage on that. The other way around, ACQF has a very good network of technical persons that AFTA can take advantage of. And finally, monitoring and evaluation linkages, studies, data management reports that can be shared between the two, ACQF and AFTA. The planned ACQF activities and potential linkages with AFTA include referencing of national qualifications, frameworks, and systems to the ACQF, includes support of recognition of prior learning. There's a lot of work that has gone into that, and I recognize the work done by the team here today on RPL, and just how that can merge into the AFTA work. ACQF qualifications platform, including the database and the development of qualifications, profiles, and common continental use related to new and emerging tasks, technologies, etc. So there are benefits of better linkages between ACQF and AFTA. I know several of you are familiar with these, but I'll still just go through the same. One, there are benefits as regards qualifications and skills, finally. And so AFTA will benefit from the referencing while on the other hand, ACQF will benefit from recognition and mobility. In terms of service delivery, I have mentioned that AFTA would benefit from capacity development programs of ACQF, while ACQF will benefit from the awareness and popularity of AFTA across the continent. Even beyond the continent, somehow political actors prefer trade and really find trade to be more popular than education or qualifications. And so riding on that would make both to benefit. The technical support AFTA will benefit from the large pool of experts in skills and human capital development in the NQF, SQF networks, while ACQF will benefit from the pool of experts in the AFTA. Coordination and structure, again, AFTA is owned by the governing agencies in the countries. Collaboration with ACQF is owned by NQF, governing agencies in the countries. Collaboration with AFTA team will bring value add. And on the other hand, AFTA also has national coordinating teams in each country that could support ACQF. Finally, we've mentioned on the measurement, the rich library of studies by AFTA would benefit, by ACQF will benefit AFTA. And AFTA monitors trade data at a continental level more closely. Trade in services, labor mobility data would be very useful in terms of measuring the efficacy, the reach, the implementation of ACQF beyond just the qualitative approaches. ACQF is an enabler of free trade. Stakeholders across the continent are confident that the new continental qualifications framework is an enabler of trade and economic development. This was reinforced across board by almost all respondents. And as an enabler of trade, it has 4 key elements to it, which includes labor mobility, because it facilitates qualification referencing. This in turn enable qualified people to travel beyond borders with confidence that their skills and competencies are recognized in the host country. And so there is a lot of labor mobility that happens when there is qualifications referencing. And secondly, in terms of value chains enabler, the ACQF really enables, because of the learning outcomes, it enables value chains as regards skills and competencies. And this is an important element of the AFTA. And so it is a value chains enabler. Just that it does so in terms of human capital development and perhaps trade in services. There's skills portability, and skills portability means that you can carry your skills wherever opportunities occur and still be able to work. And finally, there is a common language, ACQF, and I think this is one of the most exciting parts for me, gives a common language to all the participating countries, NQFs and RECs, and ensures that that common language then facilitates trade. Because for trade to happen, there needs to be proper communication, and that communication is facilitated by a common language. So I want to perhaps highlight some of the challenges that we foresee might need to be overcome before then now these linkages can be experienced and the synergies can be seen or observed for the 2 instruments and institutions supporting them. And so one, there is insufficient data and awareness. Several speakers and panelists that have spoken have mentioned on the need for awareness. And I want to reiterate on that there's need for awareness creation for ACQF. Secondly, there is insufficient expertise in Africa. Yes, we recognize that ACQF has brought together a pool of experts across the continent, but the pool is still very small compared to the amount of work that still needs to be done. And so there needs to be progressive, continuous learning, as Eduarda has highlighted. There is a lack of political will in some areas on labor mobility. Somehow, and I think this is where now even ACQF itself will play a role in terms of creating trust that the people coming into our country are qualified nurses, qualified doctors, qualified teachers. And so that trust hasn't been there. And because of that, there hasn't been political will on labor mobility. Diversity among member states. Africa is very diverse, whether in terms of language, in terms of economic development, in terms of education. And that diversity has proven that there are some countries that are ahead and others that still needs a lot of work in terms of coming together, both as regards trade and qualifications frameworks. Non-tariff barriers. Countries still have stringent conditions for foreigners to live, study, and work. And this is going to slow down some of the benefits that we've highlighted in the slide before. There is competition among countries, which is natural. And this has made some countries to be uneasy, allowing players or workers or skilled personnel from the other competing countries into their country. And of course, we anticipate that the excitement around AfTA will bring this competition to a level of complementarity as opposed to negative competition. There is a social security mobility, which has been a problem, and especially in some of the established regions on qualifications framework like SADC and East African Community, carrying social security, from one country to another where you're going to work hasn't been actualized. Several RECs are already working on it, but it's still a barrier or a challenge that needs to be overcome. And finally, development of NQFs. ACQF as a reference framework allows comparison between two or more NQFs, and several countries have made progress on this. However, several others are still yet to get here in terms of implementation. And so that work is still in progress, and we hope that it will still get somewhere at the end of the day. So this is my final slide. Our recommendations are fivefold. There's on the structure and governance, there are recommendations as to what are the ways in which ACQF can be nicely anchored so that there is collaboration between ACQF and AfTA. We've made a raft of recommendations, and I would propose that you read the study and just interact with those details so that then you appreciate our reasoning. We propose a memorandum of collaboration between AfTA and ACQF. This will ensure that both organizations that support and institutions and the instruments speak to each other, appreciate the strengths, what's being brought on board, and where they are both targeting the common direction of both. Third, national and regional cross-coordination and cross-collaboration. I've already mentioned on this. Policy making and negotiations in terms of some of the items on the table for AfTA will significantly benefit from the input of the ACQF players. And on the other side as well, ACQF will significantly benefit from AFTA's input. And finally, and I've mentioned on this, I think this is the third time, awareness, information, and advocacy needs a collaborative approach between ACQF and AFTA. There is more information available. Let me finish by saying a big thank you to Eduarda for the support offered to the process of the study throughout this time. Thank you very much. We appreciate and we wish ACQF all the best. Asante sana.
Asante sana. So many thanks, William, for the work done and for all the exchanges we had, for all the interviews you managed to carry out. It's a really very important piece of information and data that you have collected. Thank you. Now we pass the floor immediately to our colleagues from CNOP, EPCA, and Naomi. So EPCA and Naomi are going to very briefly introduce to us all the handbook on competence-based training in TVET, a renewed view. So please, the floor is yours, EPCA, Naomi, and thank you very much in advance. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Eduarda. Knowing that we have very little time left, we will just be very quickly, and all the information can be viewed on the website. So just a short introduction from our side, us being Naomi Byers, who is my colleague, and my name is Epke Vogel. We have worked together, next slide, on this very interesting assignment that CNOP was contracted for by the European Training Foundation. So thank you very much for your trust and cooperation, Eduarda. So we've been working with two of our experts from our team on qualifications. Two team members who work for our National Qualifications Framework Coordination Unit that CNOP is managing on behalf of the Ministry of Education of the Netherlands. So we are a Dutch organization. I'm the coordinator of this project, and we were working with Eduarda also as a reviewer and coordinator on behalf of the ETF. Can you manage to go to the next slide, Naomi? Yes, yeah, okay, so this is the one I'm presenting now. So on the basis of discussions with ETF, we selected a number of countries with whom we worked together on the review that I will explain to you in 1 minute. So a review was done to better understand the situation of applying competency-based education and training in a number of African countries. So what is the current state of play? So these are the countries: Cameroon, Cape Verde, Egypt, Ghana, Kenya, Morocco, Mozambique. So they were selected to be on the basis of language groups, a level of implementation, region, also regional coverage. So this is for the review. Now, next, very briefly, to tell you something about our organization, CNOP is a national and international center of expertise and research based in the Netherlands. Focuses on TVET, but also on higher professional education and lifelong learning. So we are managing a couple of programs also for the EU programs in the field of technical vocational education. For example, we are the national coordination point for the Dutch NQF. So we work a lot in the field of EQF, NQFs, but also in the field of quality assurance, the ACQF program, Euro guidance for career guidance, and yeah, within these fields of activity, also for example, in quality education, pedagogics, qualification frameworks, educational standards, CNOP works at national and international level, and so competency-based education and training and outcomes-based education and training is something that really is part of our nature, and we introduced that. We have a very strong approach in research and advice activities. Now, if we look at the approach, next slide, for the African Handbook for CBT in TVET in African countries, we took a two-step approach in agreement with the European Training Foundation. And one is to really review the current state of play in a very quick snapshot in a couple of African countries. So this included literature review, online stakeholder survey, focus group meetings, or stakeholder workshops with the selected countries. And that was then translated into the handbook. So the results of this review we have used, and of course also our own over 40 years of expertise in competence-based education and training and in international cooperation, we have used for designing this handbook, which is really a practical handbook for practitioners in both policy making and in implementation of competence-based training in technical vocational education and training, and really focusing on a multi-context, a multi-country approach, especially for the African continent. CNOP works in many African countries in the field of TVET, capacity building. We're also a UNESCO UNIVOC center, so the expertise and the review was combined then in the elaboration of the handbook. Next slide. So the review is now currently being translated into a small report, but the handbook is, of course, the most important outcome of our work. So the review is really focusing on a number of research questions around the current state of play. So what are current approaches and types of competence-based training in the selected countries, differences, commonalities? How does these different approaches contribute to improving the performance of the TVET systems in those countries? What are the lessons that we can learn from this review, the meetings that we had with experts, with researchers, with stakeholders? So yeah, this was an important aspect of the review. And then what are the main issues that we need to address in this handbook? Okay, that's next. I think from here, Naomi will take over with some results about the handbook. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you, Epke. I will tell you something more about the second step of our work, and that's the handbook about curriculum-based training. The product of our first step was to make a handbook based on the input from the report and the group decision room or stakeholder meeting with the 6 case countries that Epke told you about earlier. And we wanted to make an interactive handbook so the people who would use the handbook would quickly find the information that they were looking for, but also look into where they are in the process of making CBT education. The target group were the practitioners and policymakers, and we also made connections to relevant sources, references, classifications such as the EQF, but also ESCO. And we also use concrete examples in the African context to make it more lively and to really have use the handbook in the right context. As you can see in red, we are wondering if there is any feedback, and please give us the feedback if there is any, so we can keep updating the handbook to match the needs of the field. The handbook is divided into 3 sections, where part 1 is mainly the background, so understanding CBT, what is CBT, what are the challenges, and we wrote that on the findings from the first step. And the part 2 is implementing CBT. So step 1, a step-to-step guide from the occupational standards to a full-on curriculum. And we end the handbook with some good practices that we got from the countries that were part of this assignment, but also from some short good practices from our own experiences in African countries. And throughout the handbook, there's an integral example. So there's a concrete and defined part that is, so you can see the step-to-step come to life. A little sneak preview from the first part of the handbook, understanding CBT, some challenges that we noticed from our interviews and the stakeholder workshops. So there are challenges at multiple levels, and it's not that the handbook will tackle all these challenges, but it gives you some insight in what could help to overcome these challenges. And if you are interested in the background of the challenges, the report where EPCO was talking about is also public, so you can see what are the underlying challenges of these challenges. And as I said, implementing CBT is the second part of the handbook, where there's a step-to-step guide from occupational profiles to learning outcomes, to the modelization, to getting it in a curriculum, and implementing and assessing. And there's some visuals of the handbook as well. As I said, it is an interactive handbook, so it's clickable. So you can go to the part that you really need, or can see where you are in the process. And this is for example, as from the I'm sorry, I'm looking for the term for assessment. I'm sorry. And the interactive functionality of the handbook can be determined by these visuals. So there's a magnifying glass to learn more, and there's a connection to previous research and other activities from the ACQF. And we also added some informative clips from all over the world. So everything that there is to know about CBT is shared and can be obtained. Last but not least, of course, there's a link to the NQF and ACQF because in the handbook we elaborate on learning outcomes and how to write them and how they are connected to the ACQF. And that's, of course, through the ACQF level descriptors. We noticed that the use of learning outcomes and CBT is an acceleration of implementation of the NQF, and therefore establish lifelong learning, which is why we're all here together, I guess. For now, thank you so much for your attendance. And I was wondering maybe if there are any questions, but I give the floor back to Eduarda. I think you can manage the question part from the earlier presentation and from our presentation.
Okay. Many thanks, Epke and Naomi. I want to thank, of course, the CNOP team for the effort. This was an assignment, let's say, ambitious, very short time allocated for the full assignment. And in the end, it resulted in a very smart a handbook that is interactive, it is easy to read, contains the most essential elements. It's not long at all. So anyone can use, can read, and can go deeper because it contains all the elements, to all the hyperlinks and connections to different sources. So it's a new way, in a way, to present content of a handbook. I want also to mention one maybe interesting point. This handbook is actually the result of a request done by SADC Secretariat. And SADC Secretariat was very interested in having ACQF support to the implementation of the TVET strategy of the region. And this competency-based training handbook was one of the important elements the SADC Secretariat considered fundamental. And therefore, we talked with the Secretariat, we put together the most important objectives and scope of the work. And here we have a handbook that is now conceived for the continent as a whole. And we are going simply to adjust certain elements of the handbook to contextualize it to the SADC region. So it's also a way to look and to cope and satisfy, let's say, meet different needs from different regions, starting from a common handbook that can be applicable by everybody, basically, and always contextualized. So again, thank you. So we don't have time for discussion now, but we have indicated in the chat box the URL, the link to the handbook on ACQF website. So you can take then your time and send us any questions. You have also the email contact for your questions, remarks, observations, and so we can continue the conversation. Again, thank you, SYNOP team, and thank you, William team as well for the work done. And now we are just really about to finish. We still need, let's say, 10, 12 minutes of your time. And now immediately, Erika is going to show us the poll. So the QR code and also the link to a poll. So with this poll now, we would like simply to have your views, all participants, on a number of questions. So the questions are, I think, quite easy, although there are many different options for your replies. So 2 questions are multiple choice. You can choose 1, 2, or all of the different options that are presented. And 1 question is more just so an open question. You need to write your views. Thank you very much. This is a way to get additional feedback from all of you. We are still 67. We were about 71 just half an hour ago, but of course participants are busy. So the first question, what ACQF activities and outputs do you appreciate as most useful for your country, for your region, and your personal interest? Again, you can choose as many options as you like. For now, 1 participant has replied. So in the meantime, the different participants are joining the Mentimeter. 4 participants now. Thank you very much. Already 11 participants. 12 are responding. Okay. So this is the overall responses so far to this first question. There is then a very strong appreciation for the peer learning webinars, for the training programs, for ACQF training modules, for support to countries, NQF development, networking. Thank you. 28 participants have so far responded. So maybe we can move then to the next. Thank you. Okay, so now we have, and what are your main expectations from ACQF in 2023? Again, you have a number of options and you can select as many as you like out of the possibilities that are provided. This will help us also orient and strengthen some areas. Thank you. Take your time to read all the options. So we have already 18 responses, and we see there is a very good interest in more training. So more peer learning, more training tailored to countries, more support for countries' NQF development and implementation, develop digital tools, databases of qualifications, establish a network, association of African NQFs, good point. Then also more support and cooperation with the regional qualifications frameworks, more cooperation with Addis Recognition Convention and Global Convention. That's the synergy that was being mentioned earlier. Also dissemination of the ACQF guidelines. Those who prefer to answer later can also do it, and we will consider in any case, yes, it's the response to Gertrude Namubiru from ACA. Okay. There is also continue with the same package of activities, research on new themes and issues also available. Reference your NQF to ACQF is also there with 14 voices. Thank you so much. So, Erika, we can move now to the last question. And this question is then an open-ended question. So, how can your country and your organization contribute to make the ACQF a reality in terms of further implementation? So, for example, advocacy and dissemination of information of ACQF on ACQF, this would be one way of contributing. So, let us dedicate 1 or 2 minutes maximum, and then we can conclude our webinar. Here you have to write your proposals. So here we have 4 ideas: sharing of experiences, aim to promote the initiatives in international forums, reference the NQF to ACQF and use ACQF levels on qualifications, refer those interested in RQF and NQF to the website, then sharing of good practice, communication sur l'outil ACQF. You can write more than one idea, of course. Make sure the firstly, make sure the citizens are aware of the existence of the ACQF, of NQF, RQF, and ACQF. Secondly, giving recognition and respect to other NQFs. That's a good point. Sensitization on ACQF and implementation of developed guidelines. Share learnings with other RQFs. Promoting ACQF in international forums. Very good point. Support organization of NQF Network Africa. Participation in events of training events, international, and sharing, peer sharing, advocacy, networking. Then also a point related with after the approval of the NQF, the institution will mobilize the necessary resources and train the necessary stakeholders to be ready for implementation and ownership of the national framework. Dissemination of ACQF to all national stakeholders. Continue to network with RQF representatives. Advocacy and dissemination of information on ACQF. Align our NQF to the ACQF in the near future. Implement the training modules, and a country said will contribute in organizing the dissemination of the ACQF results. Continue. Dr. Kebede is writing in the chat box. Continue working with IGAD to support development of NQF. So using the ACQF tools and guidelines, setting up linkages for referencing, participating in ACQF activities, setting up the governance structure based on ACQF model. Then development of NQF, that's a very important contribution indeed to ACQF. Promote community of practice of NQF representatives and those working to have an NQF. Referencing the NQF to ACQF, introducing the ACQF levels on all qualifications, sharing information and enhancing collaborations with other African member countries, and make information on the NQF more transparent and readily accessible. So here we had 16 participants contributing with many very, very pertinent ideas, strategic, and I think also feasible, not impossible or unrealistic. So participate in the exchange of information with regards to development and implementation of national qualifications frameworks, recognition of prior learning and other aspects of NQFs, and promote networking among the ACQF participating countries. I think these are all very fundamental propositions that will, of course, be taken into consideration now in the future steps of the ACQF implementation with AUC in the lead. And I think for AUC, it's also certainly quite interesting to see all these propositions coming directly from the countries, from the stakeholders. Many, many thanks. This is a very, very fresh set of ideas we have here, spontaneous, also reflective and reflected. Thank you very much, colleagues. So now we can simply still have 2 minutes, let's say, for anyone who would like still to say a word or two about your experience, about your views. Please just raise your hand. Whoever would like to speak, it can please take this opportunity now. Yes, Olfa, James, and Maria Gil. So we have 3 participants, 1 minute each. Thank you. And then we can close. Thank you so much. Olfa, merci. Olfa, tu peux parler. Peut-être que tu n'as pas le son connecté. Sinon, on passe alors, Olfa, dès que tu auras...
Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui, on t'entend très bien.
Très
Merci
bien,
beaucoup, Olfa.
très bien. Merci beaucoup, Eduarda. Alors, je vais être très brève, vraiment. Tout d'abord, je ne peux pas passer au fil du sujet sans vous remercier. Vous avez fait un travail vraiment impressionnant. Merci à vous pour votre professionnalisme, pour votre touche humaine qui était présente le long de ces travaux. Merci aux experts ACQF, toute l'équipe, les organismes, toute la communauté ACQF. Merci énormément. Ce que je trouve devant moi, c'est impressionnant comme approche fondée, concertée, tout le monde est là. Il y a beaucoup de richesse qui est générée en termes de documents, de webinaires, renforcement de capacité, développement de compétences. Vous avez fait une conduite de changement vers de nouveaux paradigmes pour notre continent et pour tous les pays. Ce que je propose, et pour être vraiment très concrète, j'ai 3 recommandations. Je voudrais bien qu'on ait une boîte à outils, celle qui est équivalente à la boîte à outils qui a été diffusée en 2016, si vous vous rappelez très bien, Edward, pour les pays de l'Union européenne et les pays, c'est-à-dire les pays partenaires, pour se mobiliser pour de meilleures certifications. Cet outil, c'est axé sur le suivi et l'évaluation et ça va se baser sur toute la documentation qui est développée. Pourquoi? Pour que chaque pays se positionne par rapport à l'objectif visé, avoir un cadre national qui est mis en place pour pouvoir faire le référencement et ça va nous donner des activités vraiment très concrètes par rapport à chaque pays. L'autre chose, c'est la communication. Il faut vraiment communiquer à haut niveau par rapport à ces travaux. Comme recommandation, c'est un communiqué de la part de l'Union européenne, de l'Union africaine plutôt, qui est adressé à tous les pays pour adopter ces travaux-là de haut niveau et que ça soit vraiment d'ordre stratégique. Ma 3e recommandation, la finale, je pense qu'on doit penser ensemble à un fonds ACQF. Beaucoup de pays, je pense qu'ils ont des entraves quant à la généralisation de leur cadre de certification par rapport à tous les secteurs de formation, les secteurs éducatifs, probablement dû à des problèmes d'ordre de financement. Donc, pensons à ça. Merci encore. Je suis très contente d'être parmi vous et restons en contact. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Shukran jazilan, Olfa, pour ces recommandations et aussi pour, enfin, les mots d'appréciation. C'est toujours très, très important, motivant et ça nous encourage. Merci. Olfa. James Mwewa from Zakwa, Zambia. Then we have Maria Gil from Angola and Matthias from Cameroon. So now, James, 1 minute, James.
Thank you so much, Eduarda. Thank you for this platform. May I first and foremost start by congratulating you and of course, everyone who participated in the project, the ACQF project, for having worked so hard to see the project to where it is today. Going forward, I feel we have heard a lot of stories. History is not short of stories of documents that were well put together documents that are so rich in content, but yet devoid of implementation. So I just want to beseech all of us in this meeting to ensure that we continue demonstrating the willingness that we have showed so far to be able to own this project and see to it that we implement the documents that have been born out of this very wonderful and well thought out project. History, unfortunately, will not be so kind on us. We will not be judged so fairly if we fail to implement the outcomes of this project. Thank you so much, Eduarda.
Thank you so much, James, for this very fundamental point. History will not recognize if we do not manage all together with all of you to implement. And that's, I think, the important objective now going forward. Now, Maria Gil, Angola, you have the floor. Thank you, Maria. Maria Madalena, from Inares, Angola.
Muito obrigada, Eduarda. Olha, eu não vou repetir o que os nossos colegas já disseram. A Eduarda também fez um resumo no primeiro painel e a seguir também os colegas mencionaram outras coisas. Gostava de falar um bocadinho sobre desenvolvimento sustentável, sobre o quadro de qualificação, mas também estou bastante ultrapassada em relação a isso. A única coisa que sei é que o projeto de desenvolvimento, né, o ACQF, chegou ao fim e juntamente com este final, toda a comunidade. Portanto, a Eduarda já fez referência agora, que estamos todos assim um bocadinho emocionados e gostava de lembrar que houve realmente muitas conquistas, houve bastante participações, programas e com certeza esse trabalho contribuiu e vai continuar a contribuir para outros desenvolvimentos a nível da região e vai servir de referência para outras regiões também, para que muita gente saiba o processo que a gente passou e que caminhadas é que teve dado, que empecilhos é que encontrou e como superar muitas vezes esses desafios. Portanto, neste momento, a única coisa que devo fazer realmente é agradecer a todos os participantes, agradecer particularmente a Eduarda, que teve um engajamento notável neste processo todo. A sua coordenação ajudou o grande engajamento de todos nós e isto foi bastante reconhecido por todos, né? E então não seria demais eu acrescentar, até porque é digno de ressalva. Portanto, todos nós reconhecemos isso. A outra coisa que eu gostava de desejar a todos é muito boa continuação, muito bom trabalho, festas felizes para todos, para as nossas famílias, para todos nós. Claro que agora tornamos-nos uma grande família, então festas felizes para todos, que 2023 venha muito melhor, com menos chatices, com certeza, e que tenhamos novas oportunidades, novas, boas oportunidades e uma ótima continuação para todos nós. Era tudo que me cabia dizer. Obrigada.
Muito obrigada, Maria Madalena, por esta sua partilha, não só do que foi realizado de maneira concreta, tecnicamente, mas também por todos, enfim, os sentimentos e emoções que rodearam o trabalho, este processo com tanta gente envolvida. Agradeço muito, foi um privilégio muito grande. So I could visit Angola after many, many years in the framework of the mapping study, and all the persons I met and the institutions are today in this meeting. And it was, so these human contacts with institutions, with experts, with stakeholders are certainly one of the most fundamental, let's say, basic factors of success of this process. So thank you so much, Maria Madalena. Estamos em contacto. Juntas. Okay, and now, mon cher ami Mathias, du Cameroun, du MINEFOP, qui est un grand travailleur pour le CNC du Cameroun. Merci, Mathias.
Bien, merci, Eduarda. Vous m'entendez?
Oui, mais il faut parler plus fort peut-être ou bien augmenter le son, je ne sais pas, ou t'approcher.
OK. Moi,
c'est mieux, c'est bon. Oui.
Je voudrais associer ma voix à toutes celles qui m'ont précédé et à celles qui vont suivre, me succéder, pour te dire infiniment merci. Merci parce que ce que tu as comme travail a permis à notre département, premièrement, d'avoir un nombre de ressources humaines qui s'intéressent aux questions de certification plus que par le passé. Je dis merci parce que ce même travail, aujourd'hui, quand j'entends le professeur Robertine Mwamba parler, je revois encore la scène, la table, la photo autour de laquelle nous étions assis ensemble en mars 2020. Comme elle disait tout à l'heure, au tout début du Covid, là. Et nous sommes tous heureux aujourd'hui de réaliser que nous avons des vues qui se rencontrent et qui vont nous permettre d'avoir un cadre véritablement consensuel dans notre pays. Des enseignements fort intéressants, fort enrichissants que nous avons reçus pendant ces 2 années à travers les webinaires, les échanges et les 2 semaines de formation sont tels qu'aujourd'hui, lorsque nous parlons de CNC dans notre département ministériel, on croit comme faire à quelque chose que l'on va toucher des doigts. Ce qui, il y a quelques années, n'était qu'une vue de l'esprit. Aujourd'hui, le rêve a pris corps et nous sommes tous heureux. Je voudrais donc dire, à la suite du professeur Wamba, que notre défi, ce sera de parfaire et de finaliser un CNC camerounais et ensuite de pouvoir le mettre en œuvre et d'avoir après une structure de gouvernance qui pourra faire le suivi, de telle sorte que quand nous entendons Maria Gilles parler de son pays, de l'Angola aujourd'hui, nous sommes tellement heureux de voir un processus qui a commencé, qui a abouti avec sa ratification et son adoption. Je m'arrête là pour encore une fois de plus dire merci et souhaiter à tous et à chacun de merveilleuses fêtes de fin d'année. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Mathias, du MINEFOP Cameroun, pour ce témoignage et aussi pour cet engagement. Le mot engagement s'applique parfaitement, je crois, à vous. Merci beaucoup, Mathias. Donc, I would like to then, from our side, I think we completed all the activities of this webinar. There was so much to say, to share, and I'm really pleased to see that so many participants are still online, despite the fact that we have 1 hour above schedule. And from my side, I just want to say thank you. I learned so much. My entire family has contributed to this process because we have worked so much through webinars. So everybody was participating in a way. It's a big privilege for me, a big, sincere privilege to have worked with all of you, so many different countries. And I would like to ask you all to please open your cameras. We have not yet finished because I will pass the floor, of course, to Emmanuel for the closing remarks. And from my side, I just want to say thank you again. We will continue. And then the big word now for the future will be implementation and continuation of learning, certainly. And implementation is something that came out very clearly from all your testimonies and reviews and feedback. I hope that Erika is making a couple of screenshots and so we can share them with you. And happy season, festive season, happy new year with peace and success in all your endeavors and projects, and perfect health, happiness also at home. I pass the floor to Emmanuel for the final remarks and closure. And I also thank Emmanuel very sincerely for all the work done together and for all the discoveries done together. All the best to all of you. Please smile. Verna. Mr. Hamid, Monsieur Hamid. Bonjour, Monsieur Hamid, quel plaisir.
Merci pour vous, merci à toute l'équipe.
Merci.
Ah, avec la Coupe du Monde.
Oui. En fait, c'était presque.
Obrigada. Feliz Natal.
Feliz Natal a todos. Emmanuel, if you are there and
Feliz
you want
Natal a
to
todos. Bonne fête a
to
tous.
say your final just closure words, thank you in advance.
I don't see him connected, Eduardo.
Okay, yes, maybe yes, because he's in a very unstable situation, he's traveling. In this case, then
Eduardo, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Gertrude. So we close then this final webinar, which is just a beginning, a new beginning for a new phase, and we meet again. Thank you so much, everybody. It's a real privilege. It
Boas
was a
festas,
real privilege, and it will.
Bonne fête a tous.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Feliz Natal.
Thank you.
Bye all. Merry Christmas,
Obrigada.
Eduarda.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bonne
Bye,
fête
Andrea.
a tous.
Bye.
Bye.
Obrigada, muito obrigada.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bonne
Bye.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup à tous
Merci.
pour
Merci à
l'apprentissage et
tous.
pour la participation.
Merci beaucoup à tous.
Buenos
On
dias.
continue. Merci.
Bye bye.
Mon cher David.
Oui, Eduarda. Je suis ému.
Mon
Eduarda,
cher-
bonne fête.
Ému.
Boas festas.
Muito obrigada, minha cara.
Boas